The next speaker is the Honorable Maotwe.
Greetings to the President, Commander-in-Chief of the July Movement, the Economic Freedom Fighters, the only dependable tool in the hands of the poor, commissars, ground forces, and the people of South Africa. This year, our glorious movement turns 12. We invite you to celebrate this milestone with us at Kailita Rugby Stadium on the 26th of July. We commend the bravery of Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi in exposing the rot in the South African Police Service and the judiciary. We urge him to remain resolute and never surrender to criminals. Chair, the budget before us is for the National Treasury. Before addressing the specifics, we must offer a historical reminder that under apartheid, Treasury was a department under political direction. It never dictated to the National Party. But post-1994, the former liberation movement surrendered to the Treasury, the Reserve Bank, and the IMF, allowing them to dictate economic policy. Today, the Treasury tells Parliament that the state cannot build capacity, in-source workers, or nationalize the Reserve Bank, not because of legality, but because they ideologically oppose it. We reject the proposed budget of the National Treasury, and we're going to outline the reasons why. The Standing Committee on Finance spends most of its time on money bills, leaving no time or capacity for proper oversight of Treasury or its entities. We propose a dedicated portfolio committee on the National Treasury to hold it accountable, and will take this matter to the Rules Committee. There is no credible economic recovery plan. In 15 years, Treasury has failed to table a practical economic strategy. Growth has averaged below 2%, while our peers grows at 3 to 4%. Treasury is obsessed with balancing today's budget and is incapable of long-term planning. Their growth forecasts are consistently inaccurate, yet we are forced to rely on them for planning purposes. What we need is increased state spending on education, healthcare, defense, ESCOM, and industrialization, not the austerity culture of this Treasury. Despite commitments made in 2019, there is still no state bank and no sovereign wealth fund. The former minister even tasked Dr. David Masondo, still a deputy minister today, to deliver on this. But what happened? Nothing. Minister, either you want a state-owned bank to protect our people from a banking cabal controlled by a handful of white capitalists and a sovereign wealth fund to preserve this nation's wealth, or you don't. There is no middle ground. Treasury is killing the land bank, and with it, black farmers and food security. The bank must be moved back to the Department of Agriculture, aligned with sector policy and recapitalized. Loan conditions for black farmers must be eased. We reject the so-called spending reviews. These are nothing but tools to entrench austerity under the guise of efficiency. We don't need austerity. We need bold, expanded, state-led investment. We're told that a former Deputy Director General has been appointed without a tender to lead this review process. We'll follow up and expose the rot. Who will believe the AG when she highlights over-reliance on consultants if Treasury is doing the same, possibly corruptly? Treasury is deliberating trapping South Africa with foreign loans for political and policy entrenchment. They are selling the soul of the nation to constrain future democratic choices. Loans from the IMF and World Bank are loans that we do not need and cannot afford. They are locking us into policies that benefit the elite. The EFF has written to the Speaker with all the supporting documents and will introduce a private member's bill requiring parliamentary approval for all IMF and World Bank loans. These loans and their conditions must pass through this House. Our people must know. We reject the Treasury's plan to move out of the Pretoria CBD, while the city of Tshwane, led by the EFF MMC, is working day and night to revitalize the city. The Reserve Bank is returning back to the CBD, yet Treasury wants to leave. This is about elitism and inaccessibility. The PIC must be mandated to invest in urban renewal in Tshwane, Johannesburg, eThekwini, and Buffalo City. Government departments must rent office space from these developments, not from politically connected landlords of decaying and overpriced buildings. We also raised a long-standing issue the EFF has championed. Thousands of cleaners, security guards, and other vulnerable workers are having pension deductions taken from their wages, yet these are not paid over to pension administrators, especially by municipalities. The officials and National Treasury and the Financial Sector Conduct Authority continue to fail these workers, perhaps because their own pensions are safe. Our solution is clear. A municipal pension fund similar to the GEPF must be established, one that invests directly in municipal infrastructure and not gambling on the GSC. We further want to state this clearly and unapologetically. We are going to nationalize the South African Reserve Bank, and no treasury is going to stop this. We need a central bank that serves the people, not one captured by private banks, paying them billions every year for doing nothing. That money should be building hospitals, clinics, and schools. We are also concerned by an emerging trend of cronyism. The more the ANC loses electoral support and ministerial control, the more its cronies show up as board members of state-owned entities. The recent appointment of David Makhura as a non-executive director of the DBSA is a textbook example of cadre redeployment guised as governance. We'll not keep quiet while institutions are handed over to comrades with no credibility and cannot be redeployed to ministerial positions. Finally, we must ask, why is National Treasury reluctant to provide more funding to SARS? SARS needs resources to modernize, increase capacity, and combat illicit financial flows. This is not expenditure, Minister. It is a multiplier investment that will help the state to collect more revenue and close the leakages bleeding our economy. The EFF categorically rejects this budget. It is anti-poor, anti-growth, and fails to transfer wealth to the majority of our people. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Adebe.
Thank you.
Order, Honourable Members, order.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, the Honourable Minister, colleagues. We note that the National Treasury plans to manage an overall budget of over 2.37 trillion this fiscal year, with debt service cost projection at 385.9 billion, the second largest item after education. Our debt to GDP ratio now hovers around 75.2%, a glaring warning sign that our economy is caught in a trap of low growth, high debt, and shrinking fiscal space. And yet the Treasury's own economic projections remain timid. Only 1.3% growth is projected for 2025. This is not good enough. Treasury continues to emphasize consolidation over stimulus and compliance over creativity, leaving the poor and unemployed to fend for themselves while waiting for trickle-down recovery. We are alarmed that 163 of our 257 municipalities are either dysfunctional or financially distressed. We applaud the efforts that seeks to address the funding model in this regard. This failure continues to erode the front lines of service delivery and places our constitutional developmental vision at risk. We have noted the persistent underspending of conditional infrastructure grants amounting to more than 6 billion in the past financial year. Treasury must also accept its own share of responsibility for rigid grant frameworks, excessive compliance burdens, and poor intergovernmental support. We call for decentralized capacity building, faster turnaround in grant approvals, and differentiated support for rural municipalities and provinces. We remain disillusioned by Treasury's slow pace in implementing the public procurement bill and the continued exclusion of rural SMMEs and black-owned cooperatives from state contracts, despite procurement spending nearing 1 trillion annually. Transformation must be more than policy. It must be measurable, reportable, and enforceable. We are increasingly disturbed by the continued bailouts to underperforming entities. Over 331 billion in bailouts have been issued since 2018. We support developmental state interventions, but not when they are poorly governed and economically irrational. Treasury must implement strict turnaround timeframes, clawback mechanisms, and hold boards and executives personally liable for fruitless and irregular expenditure. We support this budget vote and extend a continuous call to Treasury and the Standing Committee to place the needs of ordinary South Africans, especially in rural unemployed and underdeveloped communities at the center of public finance. Let us not manage decline. Let us finance dignity, development, and democratic transformation. I thank you.
Thank you, honourable member.